When I first started working as a paramedic, something happened that made me wonder if I wanted to continue doing this. Early one morning, we got a call from the emergency service. An elderly man had a heart attack. When we arrived at the scene, the gentleman was lying on the floor with his arms folded. We asked his family to leave the room and he asked me to help him, and we started taking care of him. His skin turned a bluish shade, and he complained of chest pains when he was breathing very hard. At times he lost consciousness, but there was a moment when he squeezed my hand and he asked us to help him. He told me that he did not want to die. It seemed that we would be able to stabilize him when suddenly he looked behind us into the corner of the room, and his eyes opened full of horror. He turned completely pale and began to back away as if he wanted to run away from something, and we asked him to calm down so that we could help, but he didn't pay attention to us. I perfectly remember his face distraught with panic as he continued to look into the corner and scream, "No, it can't be that, please. No, that, please. No." Suddenly I felt my body let go because he just left. We couldn't bring him back. He died right there with a terrible horror reflected on his face. My face, every time I remember. I never wanted to know what he went through in those last minutes in that room. Ambient music. I am a musician and devoted myself mainly to composing ambient music. A few years ago, I had an idea for a project. I was going to just record the sound from my room while I was sleeping, and then mix it with other sounds and create a piece of experimental minimalist music. At the time, I lived in a house that my parents lent to me in a remote location, a kilometer from the nearest neighbor, which was perfect for working on my music. That evening, set up some microphones around my bed. I fell asleep a little after 11 when the equipment was recording the next day. Watched the recording, and I realized that this is not the case, and I heard something that almost killed me to death exactly 3 hours and 24 minutes after the recording began. I could clearly hear the door of my room open. White hoodie. In the middle of my university's campus, there is a large lake and buildings are built around it. On one side of the university building and on the other student dormitories. In the middle there is a small island about 20 meters long with a kiosk on it. There are 2 bridges connecting the island with the campus, one towards the campus. You can choose to take a long walk around the lake or cross it over bridges. One evening my classes ended late. I was returning to my dorm room, walking across the first bridge, when I saw someone in a white hoodie walking in my direction over the second bridge. When I reached the end of the first bridge, I lost out of sight of him. I didn't really think about it until I crossed the island and started walking on the second bridge, which we had to strengthen. Where to go? I ran to my room, and when my roommate came, he was already there. Out of breath, I started telling him what happened to me on the bridge, but suddenly he stopped me and asked, was it someone in a white hoodie? It turned out that the same thing happened to him the previous semester. He never went out on the bridge again at night. No one talked about it, but I think that's why everyone made the long way to the dorms. Frequency. When I was a kid, I found a beautiful radio in a thrift store, and they sold it to me for a few coins because that it didn't work very well that evening. I spent time with it trying to make it work. I found an old TV antenna and connected it to the device. As best I could, I started scouring the static, trying to find some radio station that might be useful to me. After a while, I caught, but only a small, somewhat strange sound was heard. I listened to it for several seconds, when suddenly the sound stopped, and a voice was heard that said that he was dead. I was holding. It's off. I was paralyzed with fear. I'll never understand it. Exam night. One night when I was in high school, I was in my room, studying very hard, because they know that I had the next day. Around midnight there was a knock on my room door, and another one said, "Son, I brought you something to eat. Open the door." I told him to leave it, and now I'm coming. He didn't answer me. He knocked on the door again and said, "Son, I brought you something to eat. Open the door." "Thank you. I'm not hungry," I told him then. I heard my mom go berserk. She seemed to have gone crazy. Little nigga with all her might shut up. I was scared because I had never heard him speak if I got up to open for him. When I felt something was wrong through the door, I heard him say please at the door. At that moment I remembered that my mom had not been there since the day they spent a few days at my grandmother's house. Europe was not there because she worked that night. I had to be alone in the house. The sound stopped. I heard footsteps leave my room and go down the stairs. I spent the rest of the night in my room, afraid to leave the room, until my dad came in the morning. I didn't tell anyone what happened. Whoever it was or whoever he was, whatever was outside my room that night, it wasn't mine. Mom, I still wonder what would have happened if I had opened the door.